welcome from the Gundalow Company. I'm Gretchen and I'm going to talk to you today about Gundalows. So to start with, I want to take you back about 400 years and I want you to imagine you've just arrived here on a boat, okay, from England. And I want you to think about coming into our harbor here, coming into our rivers, and what the area might have looked like 400 years ago. So we have a whole series of waterways. We have the Piscataqua River that flows right up here, right from Portsmouth up into Great Bay. And we have all these other rivers, these freshwater rivers that are bringing fresh water into the bay. So if you would come here 400 years ago, you would have seen a lot of water. You would have seen a lot of wildlife, fish, large trees, thick forests. You would have also seen some of the early people, the Native Americans that lived in this area. And you may have decided that this would have been a good place to settle. And so a lot of the English people did decide to settle here. There were some early people who settled here down here in the Portsmouth kind of Rye area. There were also people who settled up here in Dover Point. And when they did, they built their homestead. They cut down some of the trees in the forest that live here, that were here and growing here. And they were pretty excited about the large trees they were finding because in England, they had already cut all of their trees down. So when people arrived here and saw the trees and the size and the massive, how tall they were and how big around they were really excited to be able to use those trees to create masts for ships. So pretty early on, people started to cut down the forests. And as towns began to be built in these places, up here in Dover, or here in Newmarket down here, or Durham, Portsmouth, Kettering, way down here in Exeter, as these towns started to build, they needed a way to get the supplies and the goods and the trees and all of the things that they would have to move back and forth. So if you were thinking about 400 years ago and how you might move something from one place to another, today, if we're going to move something, we often take it by road or by car or by truck. Well, if you were up here and you were living maybe, say, in Durham, and you wanted to get your goods down here to Portsmouth, okay, at the time, there were no roads, so how would you have gotten your goods all the way down there? If you had tried to go straight there, you would have hit water. Okay, and at the time, there were no bridges, so they wouldn't have been able to get across the water. So if you really were to take the land, you would have had to go either all the way around down here or all the way across up around the top. And there were a lot of obstacles. So they thought about what might be an easier way to transport goods and cargo in our area. And if you look here, you can see that if you were in Durham and you wanted to get down to Portsmouth, there's already a road there, but it's not a road like we have. It's a waterway, a river. And so they wanted to design a boat that could carry goods up and down these rivers very quickly. And so that's where Gundalow comes in. So when they looked at the place, the area, they knew that there were certain things about this area that made it special when you wanted to design a boat. First of all, every day, twice a day, the tides, the water flows in and out of these rivers. So this river gets very, very fast. And so if you were going to design a boat, you wanted to design it so that it could come in with the water, in with the tide, and out with the next tide. Okay, because you don't want to go against the tide. It would take you too long to get there. So the boat needed to be able to go with the tides. It also needed to be able to navigate and travel in some of these rivers. And what we know about those rivers now is that Great Bay, Oyster River, all these rivers up here are very shallow in places. And so having a boat that could get into really, really shallow areas and maybe even sit flat on the mud would really help goods be able to get up and down the rivers. So really needing to come up with a design that can get into shallow waters. So those were some of the first challenges. Well, and also we needed the boat to be able to carry cargo. So it needed to be big and open and flat so that we could get a lot of cargo in. So they designed a Gundalow. So let's take a look. This is a later Gundalow. And let's see if it has some of the characteristics, some of the things we talked about that would let it get up and down our rivers. So first of all, it has a very flat bottom. So if you were to imagine a boat traveling in a shallow area, this boat only goes down a couple feet at the most into the water. So it should be able to get into muddy, flat areas. It also when the boat comes down onto a mud flat, it's going to be able to sit right down on that mud flat without tipping over. If the boat was pointed at the bottom with a big keel or something else, as the boat came down into the mud, it might tip over. So it could actually travel really smoothly with that flat bottom. Okay, what else did we say? We said it needed to have a big space for cargo. So let's take a look at the boat from this angle. So it has this big open deck. Some Gundalows were only 20, 25 feet. This Gundalow looks like maybe it was built to be a little bit bigger, maybe 50 or 60 feet. And so the Gundalow would actually be nice and wide so it could stack and carry lots of cargo. So what are some things you can think of that the Gundalow might have carried? Maybe things like bricks to build houses and buildings, or wood. It could also carry things like salt marsh hay to feed animals, food, mail, all different types of things that people may have needed back in, to be able to go up and down the rivers. All right, so we have a flat bottom, we have big open cargo area. We also need a way to move the boat. And we already said that using the tides is a great way, but there are a couple other ways that Gundalows might move. One is they might have paddles or oars or what we call sweeps that they are able to use to at least move the Gundalow out into the current so it can travel up and down the rivers. What else might be on this boat if you were to look at that boat that might help it move? So after a while, they realized that it would be really nice to be able to have a sail on the boat. And that sail is able to catch the wind. So when the wind is blowing and maybe you want to be able to steer a little bit or go even faster, that sail is going to help the boat move forward. And we have a pretty special sail on the Gundalow, and there's a reason for that. But the Gundalow sail is called a lateen rig, and it has a kind of a short little mast here called the stump mast, instead of a really long mast like you might see in other places on other boats. And it has this really long yard that sticks up here, okay? So the very first boats, Gundalows, just had a straight up mast. And then they started to build things in the area. Can you think for a minute in your head, what might be those things that they built in this area that we needed to make a change to our boat design? Remember how we said earlier that the rivers were one way to transport things, but people also would transport with railroads maybe or other roads. So eventually they did build bridges over the rivers. And when they built a bridge, if you have a really tall mast, the boat won't actually be able to get through. So this design has this big yard that can actually get lowered down. Mine's only going a little bit, but it could actually get lowered all the way down to the deck so that the boat could go underneath the bridge, and then it can put its yard back up nice and tall and keep sailing. Okay. There's a few other things that they had on our design here. So this is called a lee board, and the lee board is used to help kind of guide that boat through the water. We don't have that low area below the boat that might help do that, so a lee board can go down into the water. We also have a little wheel back here, and that wheel is usually connected to a tiller and a rudder. So the rudder is kind of what hangs over this back of the boat or the stern of the boat and helps the boat steer. And that allows the boat to come back and forth. So the Gundalow is really a special design just for our rivers in this area that will allow cargo to be able to be moved up and down and connect them. And these boats were used in the 16, 17, up into the 1800s until roads and bridges and railroads started to make it easier for people to carry cargo in other ways. So this used to be how people got all their goods. It was kind of like the tractor trailer trucks that you might see on the highway now. That's what these were up and down our rivers. And there were hundreds. So today, there's only one of these left that's in the water that's operating. So you can see it down here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It's docked right in Prescott Park. So if you're down here, come down into the park, take a look. And we use this boat to teach about the waters, to teach about our history, and to take people out in the rivers. Thank you for watching.